sleeping with a harlot in the same book is something which is not right. Harlotry is wrong for you to see somebody you consider to be a prostitute or a harlot. Why do you sleep with her? So if you have already condemned them to be harlots or whatever, you don't have to go and sleep with them. You understand? That's why it's serious for you to condemn somebody. If you think that that person is so and so for your own good, if you are being caught engaging in that kind of with that person, there's a problem. It become reverends who teach these things, and you realize that they are fornicating with another woman, or even though they've got women, wives, or they are in harlotry in a hotel, it becomes a problem because they have been standing behind the book and teaching the things there, and so it becomes a problem of why are you people doing that, and they bring themselves to shame. But if they were to explain things directly, to tell them that whatever they did was okay, but they were only preaching the book. But in practicality, they know that the things they are preaching is not something that, or the things they did, is actually not something that offends God or anything. Yes, but they teach the Bible to let you know that it does offend God. God does not want that. They get things to back it. They use the 10 Commandments, whichever way. When it comes to that, the 10 Commandments is being used. The same 10 Commandments will be ignored in some part when somebody comes to confess in sins and saying that the name of Jesus is gone, it's fine. That one, Jesus overrides the 10 Commandments, and the 10 Commandments is not regarded anymore. So you look into it and you see that the incidents that happens here, when it happens in a practical world with anybody, they find it cool. They don't really have an issue of it. And so must it be. You understand? So much. It's life. These things are life. It's like our way of life that you can't do anything. As I said, describe sin. Sin is something that you do to the other which is wrong or can cause some provocative state to another person unwillingly that a person never invited or never encouraged. Simple definition in every way, so that in some sense you can engage in the same thing as long as the person have no problem with that. It's fine. And that's how it is in reality. The things I may say to my friends that he will not get offended, I will say to another person, that person will be offended, which is sin, is wrong. Now, in this sense, when Judah has ended up sleeping with the harlot, and the way the girl did it, somehow he couldn't escape. He had proved to everything, because he wanted a child too. You people have ruined. You've bought her life into marriage, and you people want to leave her desolate. What man will be with her now? There's no man who want to be with her, because you've already made the tradition come up that way. As I was saying about marriage, you have already kept that tradition that when she get married into the family, she was kept there, bought into the family, and they were being with her. And you even gave her to another son of yours to be with her and sleep with her. So even within the family, she was practicing harlotry or something inside there. She hasn't got her own will at that time in any way. And now she's gone through all this. You leave her to go to her family father's house. Who is going to remarry her now? So she has to find ways to, tell his father-in-law that what you have did is wrong. I don't care. I'll sleep with you. You will give me a child then, because you don't want your daughter, your sons to be with me. And so he slept with the father-in-law, and he had a child. This is another blunder here in the book. And she gave birth to twins. She didn't even give birth to just one child. She gave birth to twins. If you listen from 27, now it came to pass at the time for the Genesis 38:27, verse 27, is the time for giving birth that, behold, twins were in her womb. And so it was when she was giving birth that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand. One child brought his hand up, they put a scarlet thread and they bind the hand, some sign or indication that the child that is coming out. For some reason, that this one came out first. Then it happened as he drew back his hand. The hand that was tied out, he was the first that came in. Then he went back in again. His hand went back in. But still, he was the first. He's considered the first, But he went back in, and he wasn't the first anymore. But he went back in, and a strange way of giving birth, isn't it? Then the one who put out his hand went back in again, and then in 29 it says, then it happened as he drew back his hand that his brother came out unexpectedly. And she said, how did you break through? This breach be upon you. Therefore his name was called Perez. He sneaked his way out, in front of his big brother, just as Jacob sneaked his way out and took the blessing of his big brother. In the same manner, this one is happening in the womb during birth. So Perez, who was supposed to come later, came first. Afterward, his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. So Zerah is actually big brother to what? Perez. But I don't know how they sort of, but that's all the story there. Now Joseph's advancement. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, is now in Egypt. Let's going back to the story of Jacob here. Their younger brother Judah is a big brother who has a child, and that was the strange things about what his grandchildren or his sons are doing. The engagement he had to go through. Then we go back to Joseph, who was he has been appointed as something there and all that. And Joseph interprets dreams, and because of that, he ended up interpreting the Pharaoh's dream. And Pharaoh promoted him because Pharaoh was pleased to know that the storyline of what he said to him happened. Anything that he interpreted, the dream he interpreted, it does happen. Interpreted. So Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. If we go on to Joseph's brothers, go to Egypt. Now, when all happened, there was a famine. And somehow, Joseph's brother had to go to Egypt because that's where food was. Because Joseph interpreted the dream that made the Egyptians preserve a lot of food to feed themselves. And even outsiders were even coming in, buying food, and they were making money out of it because they were aware of the famine, thanks to Joseph. This is what this is the victory of Joseph. This is the moment for Joseph. This is a waiting moment where we have to believe that God prepared Joseph to go through only to prove a point to his brothers and his family of fulfilling a vision or a dream that he said or he spoke of to his father and brothers. But the brothers are long forgotten these things, and when this happened, they sort of become aware of it. Now the hunger was too much, and because of this hunger, the whole family ended up in the house of Egypt. They lived in Egypt for generations and end up serving the Egyptians, and these things all God knew that they were going to be serving these people. God knew. God was taking them there as a result of the famine and all that. So these are things that make me rather. I mean, what if God didn't do that? But that's what the story says. What if it's a prophecy, but he actually didn't do that? But that is what he did. That's what the story says he did. And it's to be embraced in that manner. So Joseph's brothers returned with Benjamin. Now, Joseph finally tests of his brothers. Joseph also has to test his brothers and all that. Joseph sends for Jacob. He had to send for his family, finding ways to bring all his family to live in Egypt. Because he was almost next to the king over there. And there's privileges. They can have whatever they want. They were living like kings in the palace. So the Jews had a good time to live that time of Joseph. until Joseph, had to die, or the family had to, and the father also requested that he be buried in his own country rather than Egypt. They strongly had this conviction.